Bismillah, brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode 4 of the podcast show on Reborn. Today, I got Sister Janette Martin from Queensland, Australia, on the show. She's gonna talk about mental health issues and the journey that she had to go through traveling to Egypt and so much more. Enticing? Definitely. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Sister Janet. How are you doing? And I want to thank you first and foremost for joining us and being a part of this podcast on this show. So, about yourself, Sister Janet. There in
Myself.
Australia. Yeah,
Okay.
well, we want to know this. This is the most important question. Can you share more about yourself, your background, the culture, especially being an Aussie sister?
Aussie. Yes.
Yeah.
Very true Aussie sister. I was raised in a very small country town in northern New England, New South Wales in Australia. We lived on a farm. So I was a typical, singlet, shorts, thongs kind of girl, a country girl, totally, through and through, and still kind of am. So down there, I was a family of, I've got two older brothers and an older sister, so I'm the baby of the family. So that's, and we had a great upbringing. Mum and Dad are still with us today, alhamdulillah. We were very lucky. So, we had a basic upbringing, a good family upbringing. We're still very close as a family today, alhamdulillah. So I am the only Muslim in my family, even out of all my siblings, even my children, myself. As I said, Western culture. For only the last 2 years did I really look into Islam. So the best part of my life, I was just raised as Western culture and knew nothing more. So I was raised as a Christian. Back down where I came from, it was Christianity. I was Anglican Christian. We had Catholic Christians, but very small community. So we weren't even knew about Islam at all. And then if the only opening or influence that we had from it is what we heard on the media, unfortunately, which we all know is not good. And that is really the only exposure that I had to Islam. We were just raised Christians. Yeah.
Wow.
We used to only go to church once a month because we lived, 20 minutes out of town. The population of the town itself, and I say town because it's not a city, it was only 2,000. And we lived out of town completely. So we used to go to a little church once a month. And I definitely believed always something. I could feel something as a young teenager, that I felt it within. I could feel there was something greater than us. We were taught about the prophets, of course. That's what Christianity teaches, We were taught about the prophets right up until Jesus. And it stopped there. So I always believed Jesus was a great messenger. I really couldn't understand the concept of the Trinity that Christian talks about Jesus being, the three. That never sat with me. I could never understand it. It just doesn't make sense to me. So I guess, mid-teenage years, I started to ask questions, as we all probably do, where's God come from? What created us? The normal questions I think that every human being actually asks at some point through life. And they couldn't answer those questions. There was no answers to those questions. So then I just, towards late teenagers, 18, 19, I sort of left the church and just went on my own beliefs. I had my belief system, and this is where it all just ties together later in my story. What I believed is actually what Islam's beliefs are, believe it or not. So all my life going through life, I went on the spiritual journey, as so many people are today. On that spiritual journey, they believe in the universe. I believe something created the universe. I did believe in the prophets. I did believe Jesus walked the earth, and I believe that we should learn from how he lived his life, not the crucifixion. And that's how I lived my life, basically, and how I've taught my children to live, just to be kind to everyone, treat everyone with kindness, because what you give out, you get back. These were my beliefs growing up through life. And, I believe everything happens for a reason. And it's how I also, I guess, coped and got through the challenges that I've had through life, is just believing it's all happening for a reason, good or bad. And we may not see the answer to it while we're in amongst it, but it always turns out for the better afterwards, or there's a reason why it happens. So these were my beliefs growing up anyway. So yeah, that's a bit of my history in the past.
So that is Sister Janet's brief introduction, and I just want to cut a few pieces from your introduction, and I just want to know more about when you said that you lived in the countryside as an Aussie sister that grew up from the countryside, and the information that you attain about Islam in general, or about Islam as because you were brought up as a Christian, and if I'm not mistaken, you were saying an evangelical or a Catholic.
Yeah, Anglican. It's called Anglican.
Yes. Anglican Christians. So, the image of Islam is not being portrayed as what you know today, because due to the propaganda of the media, and also the enemies of Islam, for instance. So, how did you actually from that part of the country, of a very beautiful country, from a countryside? How do you actually know about Islam? Alhamdulillah, you had that feeling towards Jesus is not God, and the concept of Trinity is contradicting itself. Doesn't make sense. And how could it's like, how could 1 be 3 and 3 be 1 mathematically? How did you actually seek and okay, let me just open the book, let me just think about it, let me just look into it? You had friends in the countryside who were Muslims?
No Muslims where I grew up from at all. So this is where the story gets interesting, because I believe this is God, Allah had me on that journey right from there. And it's I look back on it now, and it's just continued all through life. So when I was still that young teenager, my father used to sat there in total fascination with him, watching them, and I was drawn to it for some reason. I just had this, I just want to go there. I had this fascination with it, I guess you would call it, or like a magnetic pull, as my daughter calls it. Always wanted to go, and just, didn't think I ever would. We go through life, you get married, you have children, Western culture, you just, carry on with life. 25 years of age, I knew I would actually write a book, but didn't have the content as yet. So that was interesting also. I just had that feeling that I would end up writing a book, but wasn't sure what about. So needless to say, life went on. We'll skip through quite a few years, married, had children, etc., etc., etc. And then 2 years ago, for a business partner and I, a friend from here as well too, we went to Spain on a business conference, and as we flew back past Egypt, basically, I just said to him, I said, I'd love to go there one day. So about probably 5 months after that, he said, do you want to go to Egypt on a tour? He invited me to go. Alhamdulillah, I will always be very grateful for that. So my two youngest children, and we went to Egypt, finally, alhamdulillah. After many, many years of wanting to go, I finally got there. So And that was it. That was it. That was my actual first exposure, believe it or not, on a tour. And this is why I have now got the content of my book, which I only wrote 12 months ago. I knew when I came back from Egypt the second time, I had the content of my book, and I had to share just my story, which I knew I would write 25 years previous.
So you intended to, you had this I would say you had this feeling of actually writing a book, of being an author of a book, but you're not sure what was the content of the book, what theme that you wanted to actually write. And after traveling to Egypt, you were, I believe that, well, okay, I'm going to write something right now. I know this is what I'm going to do.
Yes, absolutely. That worked,
so,
alhamdulillah, and it just all fell into place perfectly.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
So when you traveled to Egypt and with your two youngest children, were you Muslim, or were you Muslim then?
Was not Muslim then, knew nothing about it then previously.
Wow.
No, was not Muslim. That was my first, the last 2 days. So my tour, this is very interesting, and this is the content of my book a lot too, is actually what happened in Egypt. So my previous story, and then also how it all came about. The first, we went on a tour. We booked a tour. We went on the tour. It was a 12-day tour, and we proceeded. Was great. Loved it. Loved the place. Fell in love with it. Just absolutely went. Yeah, it's amazing. Amazing. Words can't explain what those structures are actually. You know how huge they are. But the last 2 days of the tour totally changed. So we did a bus trip. We were on the bus trip for about 4 hours coming back to Cairo, and then the 2 or 3 days at the end of the tour, we were meant to go to somebody else, which would include a bus tour, which I didn't want to do, and with the kids. So we had an option. Our tour guide actually gave us an option. He said, we can do this, which will be another 4 or 5 hour bus trip, or we can stay in Cairo and do the hanging churches, go through the mosques, see where Jesus and the Holy Family actually lived. And I just put my hand up and said, I want to do that.
Whoa.
And, so he changed our itinerary, and we ended up doing that. And there's so much impacted in those 2 days at the end of Egypt. It was that was the most pivotal moment in my life, when I was introduced to Islam, and basically, like as we call it here in the Western world, the light bulb went off. That was when the revelations really sat in for all my previous years before, building up to it.
So growing up, raised as a Christian, and having that kind of information about Islam and the picture and the image of Islam, and then you got married, you had children, and you travel to Egypt, and the last 2 days impacted you tremendously, significantly.
Absolutely. Alhamdulillah.
So
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, it's a great plan of Allah Azza wa Jal. When we hear stories of our brothers and sisters around the world, how Allah beautifully bring them back to Islam, pull them to the right path. And this is because of your story. You traveled to Egypt, and you visited the places where historically the Prophet were there as well, in Egypt itself. And looking at the mass engineered building of I think the pyramid, and also the, what do you call that, the other one that looks like a lion. I mean, I don't know. I haven't been to Egypt or Africa. Oh, the Sphinx, yeah, the Sphinx, yeah. Oh man, I forgotten the whole geography and things. High school. It was back then.
That's okay. Not everyone has a desire to be there. It's okay.
No, I mean, I love traveling. I love to see places. I would like to visit Turkey because of the history that they had before, Egypt, Spain, Cordoba, and all these historical places that Islam had, went through and left their history of the nations before, because it's something that amazes myself. But
Absolutely.
inshallah, I mean, inshallah, one day Allah will allow me to travel the whole wide world, bi'idhnillah ta'ala. First, of course, starting from the Muslim lands and see the history of
Yeah.
our legacy. Now, so in Egypt with your children, your two youngest children, and that impacted you. So you brought back that memory back to Australia, to Queensland, right? And you,
Absolutely.
yeah, and you basically look more into Islam when you came back.
Yes. What
Okay,
what
can you?
happened was,
Yeah.
yeah. What happened in those last 2 days, as I said, the two are totally changed. And
Mm-hmm.
when we went to the mosque, and there's a page in my book about this, where I went to the mosque and we did the tour thing, and we sat down in the mosque or the masjid, and the tour guide explained briefly, touched very
Mm-hmm.
briefly on Islam. And the other thing that also, when we were in Egypt, I couldn't believe how welcoming everyone was. Everyone was just the beautiful
Mm-hmm.
people, absolutely beautiful people. And I guess that was the first real connection that I'd had with Muslims. So, we connected that way. And then he sat there and explained the
Mm-hmm.
beliefs briefly on your beliefs in Islam, which is, there's just one God, creator of all, believe in all the
Mm-hmm.
prophets, believe in the holy books, believe in predestiny, believe in life after death, which is what I believed all my life anyway. Hence my book's named Muslim at Heart,
Mm-hmm.
because when he told me that, I actually got, the prickles, my hair stood on end from head to toe, and I knew at that very moment that was I was there for. I knew in
So,
that instant that God had brought me here to bring that message and bring me home, I guess. So I
mashallah.
connected. So I connected with the tour guide. Um, we still have connection today. It's the story's amazing in the last 2 years, but he also then, before I came home, asked me. He totally asked me, no pressure at all, if I wanted to go to the mosque with two young ladies and actually pray with them, which, believe it or not,
Allah.
was within the last 10 days of Ramadan over there,
Oh, oh,
which
you fasted Ramadan there. You had your
I
last
didn't
10
I
days
didn't
in
I
Egypt.
didn't fast over there, but I went and
Yeah,
prayed with them
but
over
you,
there. I
the
wasn't
feeling.
even aware of at the time. I had no idea. He just said, would you like to go with two young ladies and see how they pray? I went, absolutely. So my daughter and he said, you will have to cover up because you've got to do. I said, that's fine for me. I'm a very open-minded person. That was not a problem for me. So we went on a Friday night and did the prayer. Now, this was all in Arabic, of course, and my daughter and
Mm-hmm.
I came with me, and we're two little Aussie girls sitting there having no idea what was being said, no idea what was happening, had no idea at all, but I could just feel it. I could feel it. And, they shouted us coffees afterwards. We had coffee, we had great chat. I connected with them beautifully. I just went, whatever I've learned about Islam previously,
Mm-hmm.
totally, totally not right. It's totally the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
So then I flew home, and I could not, I couldn't get all that experience and what had happened. I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't just dismiss it when I came home. So therefore I started to do my research. That's when I started to read books. I still had connection with them all. I would talk to them, ask them questions, and just started to research, and everything I read just made sense.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that I read or was starting to learn just resonated with me, and I thought, this is what I've believed all my life anyway. This just feels so right.
Mm-hmm.
So there we go. I started. I then 9 months later went back again on my own. Um,
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So 2 years ago was when I first had the experience. We were there 2 years ago. And then February 2019, I traveled back for another 10 or 12 days on my own. I stayed with the tour guide and his family, his wife and his family. I stayed with them. We did a bit of touring, but we did the deserts. So we did the Sahara deserts. And I had, I guess, it was more of a personal journey. That was my personal journey. It was a personal experience, and it was more to learn about Islam, I guess, and just be amongst it again. And that's when I took my Shahada in Egypt.
So,
2019.
oh, you took your Shahada. Wow. 2019, you took Shahada in Egypt after watching a documentary that your father was watching, and you were enticed to actually travel to a very historical land or country. And I just want to quote the introduction that you wrote in your book. I think the tour guide said this: you're already a Muslim at heart, but you just don't know it.
Correct. He said that to me, and those words still ring in my. This was walking out of the mosque when he'd already said when I had that little, revelation when he told me what they believed in, and I just went, that's what I've believed in all my life. And I sort of, he's walking out of the mosque, and I'm basically chasing him, going, but that's what and he turned around, and those words came out of his mouth, were, you're already Muslim at heart, you just don't know it yet. And that's when I just went, oh, hang on a minute, what are you talking about here? I know, and that was it. It just really sparked. What is he talking about? Because at that time I had no idea. I just had my beliefs in life, and that's what they were. I didn't realize that it was what Islam's beliefs were as well too.
Interesting. This is a very it's a different different kind of experience that you went through. Is it to traveling, and then someone says that to you, and you literally wrote the same quotation or the same word that the tour guide actually conveyed to you. Yes. And it started off with that. In your introduction. When I was reading it, I was like, whoa. Well, this is gonna be a journey. The book is going to be a journey.
A lot of challenges in there as well too, but alhamdulillah, he is the best planner. Allah is the best planner.
True, alhamdulillah, thumma alhamdulillah. Now, you embraced Islam in Egypt in 2019, right?
Yes, inshallah. I did.
So, you took the Shahada in Egypt when you traveled alone. Then coming back to Australia as a Muslim, I know this. We would like to know actually the things that you had to face, and I believe the challenges that you face, that I personally that and those who are watching this and listening to this podcast can also benefit and learn, especially brothers and sisters who have just jumped on the ship, and also they're learning something new about the religion, about Islam, and they want to implement it. Definitely there are challenges that society will put in front of you, obstacles that that brother or sister will have to go through. Could you share some of your challenges that you had to go through?
Absolutely. Look, honestly, it has been a journey, and I'm still facing those challenges. I'm still, and I always will be. We're forever learning in our knowledge, but we're also need to also face society every day too. And those challenges for me particularly, because my children are non-Muslim, even though my younger ones are open to it now. Alhamdulillah, they have seen my journey, so they're very open to it. My older children were Western raised, so I came back into a household with no Muslims. My job, I'm a remedial massage therapist and a healer, and I worked in the Western world. So I still do that job today. So I'm still actually transitioning my work. I'm still in the process of trying to change things in that respect as well too. So lots and lots of challenges. When you come back to a Western world where you've got no Muslim friends or no nothing. So what I actually did was I came back and I searched on Facebook some Muslim groups, and just tried to, I put a little post up saying that I've just come back from Egypt. I've just taken my Shahada. I'm brand new. Can someone help guide something? And I had couple of sisters that reached out. One of those sisters particularly, we're still very close friends today, and she's very similar to me. She was, she's a revert or a convert. So we've connected quite well. So those challenges are still ongoing, but it's the challenges of being confident in the hijab as well too in the Western world. None of my friends were Muslim. So, it's the challenging of, will I lose a lot of friends? What will they think? Have I got the confidence to step outside my front door with it on because of the what's the word I'm looking for? Because of the judgment and what people think of Islam, because I know what they think. I was one of them. I was one of the arrogant persons that thought exactly the same as what they're thinking. So, and in this world today, it is very hard because there is a lot of judgmental out there. So, I've sort of had family challenges to face. I've had work challenges to face, and just society challenges to face, which I'm still transitioning and learning to get through. Which, once again, my beliefs always have been, everything happens for a reason. Allah has the best plan. He knows everything. He understands where I'm at in life, and He is the perfect planner. So I now just have full trust and faith, and I'm feeling that stronger and stronger every day. Alhamdulillah, particularly after this last Ramadan. I'm feeling it stronger just to have faith and trust and let go and let Him be the planner, and everything will be fine anyway. But there still is those, we're human, so there are still those challenges. The best advice that I can give anyone, particularly if they're, they are brand new, I'm still new myself, but is to reach out and connect with people, other Muslims, other sisters, or that you find a real connection with, and just find somebody that you can talk to, ask questions to, learn from, and be able to discuss. I think the most important is to be able to discuss the concerns that we have as Western people converting, and what we used to do is probably not what we should be doing, some vice versa, all that sort of stuff. It does come into all to play. So I hope that helps somebody out there. It's a hard journey. It's a journey each to our own as well too. We're all on it, and I think you've just got to find how to deal with things best yourself. What I do may not be for somebody else. But alhamdulillah, Allah will guide you in the right direction anyway.
So I think we can put this into like a very beautiful word, that the putting the trust to Allah Azza wa Jal, putting all hopes to Him, and as you said, Allah is the best of planners, and Allah Azza wa Jal will definitely make a plan that maybe for us is not suitable, that because we are judging based on our human intellectual, but Allah knows what's best for us. Even though something it seems to be bad, but it's good for us. But something that seems to be positive, it seems to be very beautiful, very mesmerizing, but it's negative, and it has a disadvantage, or it has a disadvantage on ourselves. So that's a tip that I ask Allah Azza wa Jalla that I will also implement it, even being born as a Muslim or not. I feel myself that every time when an information has been given to us, an Islamic knowledge, we're being revived. We're being, like you say, reborn. That's the whole podcast topic. The podcast show name is Reborn, because the reborn. Just to elaborate a little bit, being reborn or reviving ourselves is very important. That that a person has to get new information about Islam and improve themselves each day so that they can get connected to Allah Azza wa Jal. So hence, I want to thank again for being with us on the show. Oh, it's an honor to have you, Sister Janet. Now, but we're not over yet, so I'm gonna I'm gonna go a little bit longer with this because it's a very interesting topic. Traveling, and one of my um, like bucket list wishes that travel to countries that have history, as I mentioned. Now, transformation, hijab. You've mentioned that hijab, the culture that you came back and you had to be in a Western cultured family and environment with the bombardment of the people around it, especially in the countryside, where they're attaining most of their information are from television, right, and from media. Now, in terms of transformation, as being a sister living in the West, other than hijab is the most obvious transformation of a Muslim sister living in the West. What are the challenges that actually you went through living in the countryside in Queensland?
And not so much in the countryside now because I moved up to Brisbane, which is good. So there's a lot more.
Okay.
I have a lot more, sister support up here now, which is good. The hijab, I'll be honest, sometimes I want to wear it all the time, but it is really, and I know some, sister friends up here that don't wear it as well too still. I do love to wear it. I feel so much more confident when I wear it. But it is a hard one here for the Western sisters to be able to, I think it's really, you have to be really internally ready to be able to step into it completely, particularly in the Western world. Yeah, that's a really personal one, that one.
Okay. I just want to touch on the topic of when you mentioned about having the sister who has to have a internal strength to actually wear hijab, especially in where you're staying. What does that actually mean in terms of how do they find that tune?
I just ask Allah for it.
Allahu Akbar, that's beautiful.
When I do my salats, I just pray for strength, power, make me strong, all those sort of things. Give me the confidence to be able to go out in public and wear the hijab. I just ask Allah for it, but really it.
I mean that's the answer. I know I can't ask other questions relating to that because that summarizes the entire. It gives the whole answer. Ask from Allah, give me strength. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and that's nearly in every prayer, basically. It was quite funny. Can I share a little story? Like when I first came back, I said Shahada in Egypt, and I came back. I had no idea how to pray. As in, I didn't. They gave me a booklet when I said the Shahada. They emailed me, the steps on what to do, etc. But I didn't know how to speak Arabic. I had not. So I've had to learn all this. So this is what I've learned. I can now say it all in Arabic, and but I didn't know that in the beginning. So I know a few, and this is what I guess I would like to share to a lot of the converts out there. To do not think. I know there's, the more you go into it, the more there is, the more responsibility we have, the more that you learn, the more that you think, okay, well, I should be doing this now. But for me, I need to take it, and I think a lot should, maybe one step at a time. As we said, Allah has you on our own personal journey anyway. So for some, it can happen quite fast. Some it may not. But just to take it one step at a time and do not complicate it. Don't go in too deep, too fast. Otherwise, it will get mind-boggling, confusing, and we're just going to throw our hands up in the air and go, oh, wow, this is all too much, if that makes sense. So one step at a time, keep it simple. My first priority, not even probably to wear the hijab as such, but was to learn how to pray correctly. that was my first thing. I just thought I'm not going to do anything else. I just need to learn how to do this properly. And how I did that, believe it or not, I mean, yes, YouTube, videos and support from other humans, but my prayer word, I knew the positions, kind of, but really what I did, I just got in prostration and I just prayed. I said, Allah, you have brought me to this point in my life. We've been on a journey together. I always knew you were there. I just didn't know how to connect to you properly. Now you've brought me to this point in life. So show me what to do next. Help me. I surrender to you. I give everything to you. So you guide me. Show me, lead me, guide me what I need to do. And that was my prayer. That was when I come home. That I used to pray that my 5 times a day, but that's the prayer I would say. And just over time, well, within 12 months, I now, can recite in Arabic all the prayer and a bit extra. And so I just ask Allah for everything now. If I need anything, I just ask. But yeah. So keep it simple would be my advice to a lot of reverts. Keep it very simple and don't try and rush in to know everything at once. Just prioritize, take what's important first and just learn that, master that, and then you can ready to learn more. But Allah, that's personally my advice. Allah will guide you what is best for you anyway. So
even this advice, Sister Janet, is also, I would like to say this. Jazakillah khair, may Allah reward you for this beautiful advice. This advice also goes to born Muslim when they returning back to the path, when they're learning about something new. Don't just quickly jump to something like, okay, I want to go for Hajj, and the prayer is not perfected.
exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I want to go for Hajj, and then come back pure.
No, I still don't even Hajj. I need to learn all that still. I mean, that's still. I need to learn that one day, inshallah. Yes, but don't expect to know it all at once and just understand it and know everything, because we're forever learning.
True. I mean, even I would even advise myself and tell myself the same advice that you've shared. That Amir, if you want to go and learn something, hold on. Do the most important thing that Allah Azza wa Jalla has commanded you to do. Believe in Him. Have you believe and believe Him in His oneness? Have you perfected the prayer?
Correct.
Have you and so forth? The basic principles of Islam, and then you jump into the branches, the other information that you need to do, and the most basic thing that you start with yourself and your family members, being a good neighbor, being a just husband, being a just an honest friend towards one another, not lying, not cheating, and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's a very beautiful advice. Jazakillah khair. Now, you shared with us 2 beautiful tips, and I like the last one. Of course, I like everything, to be honest. But the last one actually really touched my heart when you said that Allah Subhanahu wa Taala planned perfectly for all of us, and if there's anything that we're going through, just ask Him, just make dua, just return back to Him, and go slowly. Yeah, that's the most thing. Go slowly, don't rush.
Don't rush it.
Don't rush. Yeah, don't rush it.
Learn to feel it. Mm.
Oh yeah, I'm feeling it.
Learn to feel Allah right there with you. Yeah.
That's right. Now, about parenting, parenting since, taking care of 5
children.
And single I know that most of them were. Oh wow. Okay.
But single mom, still single mom, 5 children on my own.
Single mom with 5 children.
Yes.
That's I can only say may Allah give you strength and bless you with patience and sabr, and
Thank you.
definitely strength. Strength is the most important thing. Okay.
Absolutely.
How do you, man, with the situation of COVID there, and I don't, this is the first time in history that children are spending their time in the house for a very, very long time. I
Absolutely.
had one of yeah, it's like one of our sisters. I mean, she's a non-Muslim. When I was talking to her, she said that I was telling her that I think you need an extra tables. Maybe the younger children will be having. So no, no, no. I'm not planning of having another child, or I'm not planning for them to stay in the house. It's too much. They have to go back to school.
It sounds about right. No, alhamdulillah.
Yeah,
Look, I actually quite enjoyed, should I say, I quite actually
yeah,
enjoyed, because I do work very hard. So the break, like my work actually did close down for 5 or 6 weeks, but in that time I did paint my
oh,
house. Alhamdulillah, I painted the end
wow.
of my house too. So, but um, as for the kids being home from school, like I have, you could see they're starting to decline. Now, touching on the mental health side of things, I know we're going to touch on that because I've been through a lot of
Yeah.
challenges. So I've had to come through mental challenges and health challenges myself. Like I had, yeah, that's a story in itself. So that's
Mm.
probably another story, but we won't touch base on that. But you can actually, I can actually see the children. I think they had 5 weeks at home where the schools were closed down. So we had to learn how to do this online learning at home, which for the first week
Mm-hmm.
was just mind-boggling for parents as well as students. But once that's sorted, it wasn't
Mm.
too bad. But you
Yeah.
could see that because we weren't allowed to go out, we weren't allowed to do anything, basically. They'd come in, they'd do their
Mm-hmm.
work, but then they would just, well, I mean, my children did, go back and play their video games or chat to their friends online and things like that, which was okay.
Mm-hmm.
But by the end of the 5 weeks, so in the first couple of weeks, it was quite good. We enjoyed it. But by the end of the 5 weeks, they you could see that were really
Oh.
starting to decline in social, like socially. They were ready to actually go back to school, and I was ready for them to go back to school as well. um, they just need that social interaction.
True. True. True.
They were ready to go back to
Oh.
school. You could sort of see them, they were just starting to go back to bed and watch movies and all day. And I think, no, we need to get back out into the real world. We need to get back into life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. True.
So
The
luckily,
humans.
I only had two at home to homeschool, which are now 15 and 13. So, I didn't really have to sit there and help them. Maybe like the 6 and 7 year olds needed help, which is a
Mhm.
real struggle for parents, particularly if they have to work their own job from home as well as homeschool children
Yeah.
from home.
Oh.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people it was a struggle. It was a tough time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had neighbors who had to actually uh, cook, prepare lunch, and then dinner, and then ensure that their children are learning class, and then because they're using their mom's phone, right? They're using
Okay.
Zoom or any
Yes.
other apps, Google Meet, and so forth. And just imagine if the mother or the father, the parents are busy and they have their device in front of them, and no one is actually monitoring them. They could just fall asleep or just not focusing
Great.
what the teacher is explaining and so forth, and they could just disappear from them from the phone right in front of them. And
Right.
the next time you will hear that the teacher will be calling Muhammad, Muhammad. I said, where are you? And it's amazing. I mean, an experience that all of us will remember. That hit in
Abs-
2019 until today.
I honestly don't think we really want to remember this year because it's been a bad one, but it's definitely going to go down in the history books. That's for sure.
True, true. COVID-19.
Yeah.
I was reading this article about one of the. I was listening to one of the prominent da'is, a prominent preacher in Indonesia, made the joke that in this Ramadan you will have new imams diverge the emerge of the new imams in the houses. So the family connection is well connected. Skills have been developed in the houses. As you mentioned, you painted the house,
Yes,
and then it's something that you wanted to do, and you had no time.
correct. I did do a lot of
And then
things.
a lot,
Yeah, a lot. There we go.
yeah,
We
and
exactly. And not only that, because I'm very busy with clients, uh,
mm,
I wanted more time to be able to read and get closer to Allah too, to be able to do my
mm,
5 prayers
mm,
on time, to be able to read more Quran and actually feel that more closeness instead of being distant in and I had the chance to do that too, alhamdulillah. So
alhamdulillah. It's the
yeah,
wisdom behind a calamity.
absolutely, absolutely,
Beautiful,
subhanallah.
very beautiful. Alhamdulillah. So now, let's go and talk about the mental health and as a profession, as you as a healer. That's your profession. Um, can you elaborate more about this?
Mental health has been a little bit of a passion for mine, and
Mm-hmm.
skipping back to my book back in my 20s is actually what I
Mm-hmm.
thought my book would be about. In my book, I touch briefly on some of the challenges that I've had through life, but
Mm-hmm.
my company name is 5 Reasons to Live. Well, my 5 reasons to live are my children, of
Yeah.
course. I've got five children. They're my 5 reasons to live. They are actually, what has kept me
Wow.
being strong through the years. I did go through some major change. I had sexual abuse when I was a young teenager. I had breakup relationships
Oh,
because of it. I had a suicide attempt because of, things. So, and then I had a
oh,
major accident, which I've touched on in my book, but not into great detail. And then only 10 years ago, I had a major accident where I nearly lost the lower, left part of my leg. My knees all got titanium in it and things like that. So I know, I guess, a little bit off track, more about myself at the moment, but I understand the fight and the mental strength it takes to be able to come through some challenges. And I
mm-hmm.
guess that's where also my faith, even though wasn't Islam at the time, but my faith of just, I know there's a creator, I know this is all happening for a reason, good or bad,
Mm-hmm.
um, and
Mm-hmm.
just knowing that there's a reason behind the good and the bad is what kept me strong, as well as my
Mm-hmm.
children. So I always become a healer. Once again, before Islam, I went on my personal journey. So I did do the energy healing. I went into the energy healing, like the Reiki and things like that, to be able to help people, not only physically, but mentally as well too. I have a pure passion
Mm-hmm.
of trying to, what should I say, help people understand that they're here for a purpose. Help people
Yeah.
understand that there's a reason why they were born and that they are loved, even if they don't feel like it. Particularly the younger generation, the teenagers, because I feel that's where a lot of people sort of lose themselves. It's where I lost myself, sort of. Not, it's been a journey. So when in my 20s, that's what I guess I thought my book would be about, because of the mental health strength that I had to have to be able to, get
Mm-hmm.
through certain things. So I went into healing, ended up becoming a remedial massage therapist. And it's surprising what we can feel through the body. So when I massage people, through people's tension, what I can actually feel on a different level as well too. And I think in today's world,
Mm-hmm.
it's critical that mental health is just out there so
True.
much today. So
Yeah.
did that answer your question, or
Uh,
not really? I forgot your question.
well, yes,
Again,
of
I'm a
course. I mean,
story
because
about my story, and you can tell I'm passionate about it. So enough about me, and back to your question.
yeah. No, I mean, alhamdulillah, you have answered the question.
Oh,
Now,
good.
about the
Alhamdulillah.
mental health, alhamdulillah, about the mental health that you just mentioned about. It's true, I mean, especially during this whole lockdown or MCO we have it here in Malaysia. Yeah, there. I would not. I will be really bluntly honest that a lot of people, including the adults and also married couples, and especially teenagers, and also children, are going through mental issues because they're locked in their houses. They're not socializing, and so forth. They're not going outside. I just had also one brother coming up to me and saying, do you have a psychiatrist or a person? In Arabic they call it tabib al-nafsi, the psychiatrist. I was like, for what? I was concerned because I know him. He's always smiling and he's always cheering, a cheerful person. I was like, what's up? Is it for who? I asked her, for who? I need to meet. I said, yo, seriously, just take my number then. What's going up? What's
Yeah.
going on? I was like,
Yeah.
wow,
It's
that bad. And
hmm.
so, how do you actually? I believe, I mean, there are neighbors as well. How do you actually? What is your advice in terms of the mental issues that people are going through? I believe that those who are watching this can also benefit themselves when they're watching this in their house, or listening to the podcast.
Once again, how did I manage it? I just had my faith. I always believed it was happening for a reason, and I did always pray to God, even though before Islam, I just it's really hard to get that inner strength. And I had children, so I guess look, I didn't.
Wow.
The mindset that I had to bring in was,
Mm-hmm.
it's not about me.
Mm-hmm.
So I would focus on other people. I would
Mm-hmm.
make sure, I would put, there's someone always worse off than myself. And that's what I used
Mm-hmm.
to think. I'd think there's someone always worse off. There's children that are starving to
Yeah.
death that only have one meal a day, and I'm being fed still, even though I'm feeling down. I got these issues, but really compared to some. So I guess I know probably shouldn't compare, but I would look at people in a worse situation than myself. And then I would see that my problems really weren't that bad. And
Yeah,
not
true. I
only
mean,
that,
that's the concept.
everything is temporary. Everything is temporary. So yes, we may be going through a hard time and it may feel like forever that you're in it, and you may never see, as we say, light at the end of the tunnel or something like that. But it is only temporary. It's a storm. The storm will come. There's always a rainbow after a storm. So I guess I just would go, one day at a time, one day at a time. And I would, I mean, I made up a planner. I also created a planner where I would set goals for the day. And if you're in that depressed mental state, even if it's a simple goal, like so simple, like, go out and have coffee, actually go outside of the house and have a coffee, or, make a phone call to a friend and talk to them. I'm not a psychologist, but this is what I sort of did for myself. I do have, and I'm going to give him a little bit of a rap here. His name is called Dion Jensen. He doesn't know I'm actually doing this video, and he doesn't know I'm going to. He's definitely a brother, not Islam, non-Muslim, but definitely a brother. Believes he's ex-army, ex-police, and he actually works very strongly for the mental health side of things. And he believes PTSD is not a disease. It's our way of thinking, which we can then, he's ex-army, he's ex-police, so he's seen some bad things. And PTSD is not a disease. It's the way that they were trained when they go into war and things like that. So it's just a rewiring of our thoughts again.
Yeah.
And I believe when we turn back to Allah, that, it's Allah will just guide and fix over time. I believe, just he shows us why some of these things happen. And I just cling on to that. I hope that helped, if that explained it in a long way around about. We look everywhere for it. We try to bring happiness from every material thing that we're in this dunya, this world. I'm learning Arabic words, but we look for materialistic. We look for money to try and fix things. We look for everything in this dunya that just is not going to cut it. It will give us happiness for temporary, but not. It's Allah. That's Allah that can just bring
Exactly.
true happiness. So yeah.
Exactly. The only the loopholes that a person has, I think, for example, for instance, like the salah, the prayer, or the why is that person constantly having challenges in his life, or the mind is not content? Maybe that person should be looking at his wudu, at his ablution. Maybe I'm not perfecting the ablution that I'm doing. Then why am I still doing bad things? Why the salah is not preventing me from doing
Yeah.
bad things? Maybe my wudu, my ablution is not perfected. I'm missing a spot.
Yes.
So
It could. Yes.
like
always look.
it's
Always look in the mirror first. Look at yourself.
exactly.
What am I doing wrong, or what can I make
Yeah.
better or do better to be able to
Mhm.
improve this or this or this? Yeah.
Exactly. So alhamdulillah, with the grace of Allah Azza wa Jal, we've reached to the end of today's podcast, today's show. I want to thank Sister Janet for spending your time, very quality time, with us here on Reborn. And I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to grant you strength, aid, assistance, and the wonders of the dunya, and also more of the akhirah, and bless your family with the gift of Islam, and strengthen the information and knowledge of Islam, and use and utilize all of you to spread his religion on the world, on earth. Ameen.
Thank you. Salam alaikum. I thank you for the opportunity. I hopefully somebody can take something from it, even if it's a little snippet. Yeah. So thank you for the opportunity.
No, my welcome. We would like to also thank you for writing a beautiful book. And I just want to end this podcast here. So, brothers and sisters, please find Sister Janet's book. The name of the book is Muslim at Heart. A very beautiful book. You can get this on her Facebook.
Yep.
You have the link on your Facebook.
Muslim at Heart. Also, website JanetteMartin.com, and the links to my book there are all on that website as well too. So, yeah.
So, brothers and sisters, please, I would advise, read the book Muslim at Heart. Don't read novels about love, about Juliet and Robert and whatnot and so forth. Read books that can actually inspire your life and actually rectify the whole intention and whole concept of your mental mindset and so forth. So, brothers and sisters, it's a wrap up. If you like the video and you like more videos to come up, you love the content, you want more, you can't wait for more, subscribe, stay tuned, and like, share. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.